Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Franchise Your Success. We have our amazing coach, Dan Olsen, in the house. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm amazing at this house. Thank you for having me here again.
Oh, of course. And today we're going to talk about a kind of controversial topic right here. Does size
Ooh, yay.
matter? In the case of a franchise, of course.
Oh no, we're going to talk about inflation?
Not today,
Not
but
today.
we can use it for another episode for sure.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about the size of a franchise. So I know that there are like emerging brands and also more established ones. So let's start with the more established ones. What are some of the benefits that as a franchisee owner we can get from going for a more established brand?
Well, there's, first of all, when you look at the big world of franchising, just in the United States and every country, most every larger country has a really established franchise culture and program and number of franchise companies out there. But the United States, I was just told the other day that there's over 6,000 of them in the United States to choose from.
Oof.
So when you look at the 6,000, though, what percentage of those would be in that more established brand? And you look at all those, and maybe a few hundred or a couple hundred, top 300 or 400 tops would be in that. There are some higher level ones where you have bigger square footage type franchise. Might be some of the restaurant concepts where you have 3,000-4,000 square foot. Those are around, but they're tough to find any opportunities for those. And those are usually already chewed up or spoken for by the existing franchisees. Then there's the smaller models where you might have 1,200 square feet up to like a hair salon or something like that, or up to a quick service food, which could be 1,200 square feet to 1,500 to 2,000 square foot.
Okay.
A little bit lower investment. They're more established. Even when you look at the well-known fast food places, we all know what those are. If you can find one that's available, you're still going to be ready to invest $1 million or more in that to get a much smaller return. So the benefit of a well-known franchise is less risk. They're already out there. They've proven themselves time and time and time again. So your chances of success are even higher with one of those types of franchises. Not 100%, nothing that we know of is 100% return, because still even McDonald's has shut down franchises. So, although we don't see that very often. So those more established franchises have less risk, but you're going to spend or invest more money in those for usually a lower return. So the return's still phenomenal. But then also you get to follow that track record of them being around. You also sometimes inherit with those some higher fees. Usually they've raised their royalty rates, and there's additional advertising and marketing rates or percentages that are a little bit higher with more established ones because they have to fuel the corporate office to make sure that you're supported properly. So there's benefits of that because of the lower risk, but I've actually made more of my decisions on franchising more on the emerging brands.
That's right. I feel like also one of the benefits that we can count for like a more established brand, it's that you don't have to worry about like the marketing side of things as much, I feel like. Because for example, let's say that I were to own Wendy's. I mean, a lot of people already know Wendy's and they know how the quality is, and or let's say that I own an In-N-Out, they already know what the product is. So it's not like we are going to have to push as much the marketing side of things, I believe.
Yeah, you're exactly right there. So when you look at a franchise, you're looking at the brand name that's already established. You're looking at the system, the proven system that works, and the support that you're going to get. Those are the three major things you look at. So with the more established brand names, you do have those already. But you also want to look at the brand name. The brand name is something that goes without saying. So when you look at marketing, just throw out Burger King, whatever. So when Burger King would do some of their advertising, all they have to do is put their name out there. Their name is usually first. The brand is first. Where a lesser known franchise that's not a Burger King, you have to put the chief benefit first, and you put the name, brand name, usually lower on the on the advertising media, whether it's
Oh,
social media,
wow.
whatever. You're stating the chief benefit in the marketing versus the brand name. But a more established brand name franchise, it's all automatic. When you open something up, even hotel chains, for example, that have that brand name, when you call and you want to make reservations for another city, you know what, I stayed there at this hotel last time. I really like that. Boom, you're onto that site. You go in, you make the reservation, and it's because of the brand name, and you know you're going to be taken care of in that hotel, or you know you're going to be taken care of in a certain way, and food's going to taste a certain way. So the brand name is huge when it comes to a larger, well-known franchise. So that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
So, what are some of other of the benefits that we could see when you're investing on a really, really big brand,
We're investing in what?
on a really big franchise brand?
Um, well, the biggest benefits that I see on the bigger brands, if you can qualify for them, because they're a little bit harder to get into.
That's right. That's a little downside.
So
right there.
yeah, it can be, but you can get on a waiting list, and you might have to go to even a different country,
Oh
or
wow,
way
there's
way
even a
out,
waiting
way
list.
out of the way space. I was thinking of a well-known fitness franchise the other day. Actually, my niece and her husband were looking at buying it, but they had sold out everything except for Wyoming, the state of Wyoming.
Oh,
So that was the last thing that was left. But they had already that proven track record, 1,000 plus locations. And so they were able to look at that track record. And so once in a while, you might be able to find a little well-known, unknown place like that, but they would have had to move from where they had their family, and in that state, they had to move to Wyoming. And I don't think they ended up doing it. But it's sometimes once in a while you come across, and I remember a certain hamburger place that came out a few years ago that grew like crazy in the United States. And I had a friend who was looking to acquire that, but he had no place to go. He had to go to Canada. So he actually owned like the area representative master franchise in one of the provinces up in Canada, because that was all that was left. But it was worth it for him to do that. So you don't want to discount that either. There's possibilities out of the country. Canada is a great place to go for franchising, and of course Australia and some of these other English-speaking countries are very very good for franchising if they're already taken here for a well-known franchise. But just keep in mind, you're usually going to invest a little bit more at startup, and there's usually a little bit higher ongoing fees, but you have pretty much a sure thing. I mean, it's not, the chances of success have increased, and you've decreased any risk.
Interesting, and it's really cool how you point both of the like the pros and the cons of being with a more established franchise. So now let's talk about an emerging franchise, because I know that you have quite a bit of experience on that. What are some of the benefits of being with an emerging franchise?
So you can look at an emerging franchise, and that might be more someone that has a franchise company that has 40, 50, 60, 100 locations out there. So they're starting to grow, they're starting to emerge, and it's starting to attract some attention. Versus even a smaller one that might only have 2 or 3 locations that's just starting, that more of a micro emerging franchise where it's just at the beginning stage. But you know what? McDonald started with one.
That's right.
Subway started with one. They all started with one somewhere. So, but when you're looking at a micro emerging, which is just starting, but they have a proven track record with the 2, 3, 4, 5 locations that they've already set up, there's a little bit more risk involved with that because you don't have that established brand name. There's a question sometimes whether it will work across different state lines. Some of the food concepts I've seen start and go across state lines haven't worked as well as in the original state that they started up. So that's a kind of a little secret that I like to look at. Are they in different states? Or are they all in one state where it's well known? And I've seen that time and time again, actually, especially in the food type business, where they try to go to a different state where they're not well known. It's just not received all that well.
That's right.
But those can be more the emerging franchises. So you got to kind of watch that to whether they're accepted in other states and the brand is growing in other states. Not only that proven system behind them, but also that it can pretty much go anywhere. So when you look at the emerging franchise level, that's probably makes up some of the bigger portions of those 6,000 plus franchises. So there's probably several thousand of those type that you can look into. So you've got a great selection of that type of franchise. And when you start getting into 50 locations and they've gone across state borders, that risk is diminished significantly. It's not to the point where it's like the full-sized big franchises have been around a long time for thousands of locations. But even 50 locations proven across state lines, there's a lot less risk in that. I think if we were to draw a graph on that, and you see the risk, the biggest risk is in the ones that have 2 or 3 locations. But once they've elevated themselves above to that even 10, 15, 20 locations, and you feel good about the people behind it, there's a good chance that that would succeed.
That's right. And also one of the emerging franchises that I saw back in the days when I was in college was Crumble Cookies, for example. They were just like 1 or 2 stores, then they grew to a couple more. They kept growing in Utah. Then I saw them in Idaho. Then I saw them spread into Arizona. So many other areas, and now look at them. They are a really huge brand, and they are known just pretty much everywhere. I literally just went to North Dakota, I remember, for a competition, bodybuilding competition, and bodybuilders, they have a sweet tooth. And
you have a sweet tooth?
I have a sweet
even
tooth.
though you're strong and you got to, you're in that competition, you're looking awesome.
Oh,
you still have
you.
that?
Yes, we do. And it was amazing to see all of these many bodybuilders with like a huge, ginormous crumble cookie. So it's amazing how an emerging franchise that if you don't think that franchise is going to grow, well, think again, because you never know if that emerging franchise that you're starting with can grow into like the next McDonald's or the next big thing in the industry. So also you mentioned that one of the considerations that you have when you're looking at an emerging franchise is if they have crossed the borders and if they are doing well across the borders. What other things should we consider when we're looking at an emerging franchise?
Okay, that's a great question. And you brought up a really good example of the cookie thing. I mean, back in the day, I remember Mrs. Fields cookies, and that just grew like crazy. There's still quite a few of those around that I've seen. I saw one the other day, actually, but not as many. And so, but you see something like Crumble that's come along and just taken the market, and they have that unique way of doing things and packaging things and delivery and the whole thing. So it's a really cool concept, and they do very, very well. And sometimes even now, even though it's a newer franchise, maybe they're not considered, I don't know, maybe they're not even considered emerging anymore because they've got so many locations and doing so well. But here's one of the secrets that I look at is you don't necessarily have to be on that trend. You don't have to necessarily have to have that. I mean, nothing against Crumble, but you don't necessarily have to have Crumble because it may not be available anyway in your area.
That's right.
So what other people are doing, they're looking at other franchises like, what's it called? Chip. I don't know if you've seen those. It's just
I've seen
it's
a
called
couple,
Chip.
actually.
And they're amazing cookies. Or there's another one called Chunk or something like that. I can't remember.
So kind of like similar.
But so they've copied that, right? And there's chances are they just saw that Crumble and thought, oh, I can do that. I got a good recipe and I can do this. And they started up and boom, next thing you know, they're there. So I've seen that in all the different types of industries. So if you start with here with this big franchise, it could be hamburger, it could be massage, it could be whatever it is, but there's not a lot available. What about the other brands within that same industry, within that same category? That's right. So for example, Chip, you could probably go grab a franchise most anywhere and succeed. It's got a proven track record. Crumble has already paved the way. But here's the other thing that happened back in my early days, and I'll use this brand name because I'm proud of it. I happened to help Fantastic Sam's kind of had a downturn, Fantastic Sam's hair salons. They kind of had a downturn. I came to them at a point where they were kind of going down. And we came in and we started building that up again. And we were doing a couple hundred new franchise units per year with that. And we did a lot of the master franchise programs and got them reestablished and brought in new blood into that company and built it into 1,300 units. It became the largest in the world of one single brand name from Fantastic Sam's. Now it's not anymore, Because here was Great Clips back at that time. They had maybe 6, 7, 800 locations. Below it, they were coming up fast. And then there was another company called Sport Clips that's had maybe at that time around 50 locations. And they were coming up a little bit. But people got away from the Fantastic Sams and they started seeing, oh, these are kind of new and up and coming. They've got a proven track record. They're growing. Here we go. So now they jumped into the Great Clips scenario, or they jumped into Sport Clips scenario. And Sports Clips, before you know it, they were at 1,000 locations. Right. And then Great Clips has literally thousands of locations today. Thousands. And they left Fantastic Sam's in the dust. Fantastic Sam's is a great company. I actually owned one of their master franchises with some partners at one point. So I've enjoyed that, being in the hair care industry, and it's been kind of interesting to see that trend. But so you don't necessarily have to have the number one. Number one is good, but these up and coming ones also are an opportunity to get into that space without having to be number one.
That's right. And I feel like it also gives us more opportunity to look at different franchises, because most people, they usually go for like the huge, bigger brands. But what if there are no other locations available that you can truly work with? Just look at the other ones. There are some emerging brands that are trying to follow the same template that you can get into and start investing and start building your tiny little empire. So speaking about the size of a franchise now, what are some of the downsides that you have seen when having an emerging franchise?
So the biggest downside, the single thing, that is a really important question, Marjorie, because is the risk.
Oh.
Because they haven't established the track record over the years and the number of units that a more popular or big brand name franchise has already done, or even an emerging franchise on the high end has done. They haven't got that established. So there's a little bit more risk involved, especially if you look at the micro emerging, but it's still worth it, because if this is the way that I've helped build. I mean, I started with several companies when they had 2, 3, 4 and build them into hundreds. I helped build them. I didn't build them myself, but I helped them build into those bigger franchise companies. But they started somewhere.
That's right.
And sometimes you have to have a little bit of faith in the people and with the existing system that's in place. Now, the other thing that's nice about the especially micro emerging is if you have some if you have a business sense about you, maybe even a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit, when you're in the micro emerging brands, there's usually a little bit of leeway. There's a little bit of flexibility. So if you like a little bit of more entrepreneurship spirit, you like a little bit more flexibility early on, there's usually more opportunity to fine tune that system. Where a more established brand, it's this system and that's it, period. You can't go out of this. But if you have a new food dish, like I'm working on one right now, actually, nice. to introduce to one of our food brands myself, because I love it. It's actually a lobster melt sandwich. Oh. So it's a little bit higher end, of course. So we're working on that to add that to it. So, but that being a franchisee of that particular program allows me to have a little more flexibility. So that's kind of a nice thing sometimes, but sometimes that flexibility isn't the right thing either. So it can cause us to have a little more risk and maybe a little bit more, less quickly get to the profit on a franchise. That what a big brand name, you usually can jump in, you open it up, you have the grand opening, everybody knows it, boom, the sales are there from day one in some cases. Whether an emerging franchise or micro emerging franchise, it takes a little more time to build those sales up. But if you do it right with the marketing, you shouldn't. You should be able to follow the system, and you should be able to hit it with a bang and start that profitability quickly.
And it's amazing how I feel like in the world of franchising, there's a size for everyone. Like if you have an entrepreneurship spirit, you can go for a more emerging one. So you can add a few of those ideas. Or if you are more of no, I want to follow just orders and give me a system, I'm just going to follow it, I don't have any other ideas, go out for a bigger one. And it's amazing
if you can get the bigger one. That's the key.
If you can get the bigger one.
But like I said, if there's the bigger one, there might be one of those smaller brands that go down the next level where they only have a couple hundred locations instead of 1,000, and check them out very thoroughly. And chances are you've got something there as well. So
that's right. And then that smaller brand that you were thinking about gets to become a super massive brand across the whole states or even across the world. I was actually talking to one of the main trainers for Crumble, and he mentioned how when they started as an emerging franchise, they had that flexibility. And he mentioned how one of the recipes that they received was actually from one of the franchisees that they had.
Yes.
And they were like, yeah, there was this amazing cookie that he invented, and we analyzed it. We went ahead on the process and see like if it actually fit with the ingredients and all the different things that we currently had, all the different processes, to see if it was a good fit, and the recipe was a fit. So to all of you, our audience, if you're hearing us right now on this podcast, you have the chance to also add a few of your ideas to improve the brand that you're in. That emerging franchise that you're looking at right now, with your ideas, can grow into a massive master franchise later on.
Good point. It's awesome.
Thank you so much again, Dan.
Thank
and it's always
you.
a pleasure to have you and learn more about all of these franchises. And then again, to our audience, there's a size for everyone. So feel free to start jumping into the world of franchising. Thank you so much, and see you on our next episode. Bye-bye.